everybody. All right. So, good to see everyone again. So this lesson, we are going to be learning about something called time signatures, as well as kind of understanding those rhythmic notes a little bit better. So I know we touched on it in a few lessons ago, and then since then we've learned how to play some basic beats. But I kind of want to just touch up again on those rhythmic notes we learned about and understand how they make up something called time signatures. So before we get into time signatures, which is essentially the law and the foundation of how everyone's playing rhythmically, we're gonna touch up on these basic notes that we learned in the past, right? So we had learned three kinds of notes in the past. We learned the quarter note, right, which is where we count 1, 2, 3, 4, right? We've kind of played some beats of that, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. We learned about the eighth note, where we count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Where we have the downbeat. The downbeat is the number, is what we call it. It's kind of like where things feel like a little bit more full. And then the upbeat, which is kind of like where we feel like we're kind of coming up before we go back down for the downbeat. The upbeat is the and. So we have 1 for an eighth note, right? And then the and. So we have the downbeat and the upbeat for an eighth note. So if you hear me stomp, that's my downbeat, or that's gonna be my quarter note, and I'm gonna clap my eighth note, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? And so you see we have 2 eighth notes for every 1 quarter note, right? The downbeat, the upbeat, okay? Now we have these things called 16th notes that we talked about, where we count those 1 E and 2 E and So basically we have the 1 and the and of the eighth note, right? But we also have these notes in between them, right? So we have 16th notes now in between them. But the E is in between the 1 and the and then we have the which is in between the and the 2. Okay? So here's gonna be, let's see. Here's gonna be, you'll hear my left hand do eighth notes. We'll go 1 and you're gonna hear my right hand do 16th notes. 1 E and right? 1 E and 2 E and right? So there's 16th notes sneaking in between, basically with an eighth note and then in between. Just like the eighth note was with a quarter note and in between. So real quick to recap, quarter notes, we count them 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Eighth notes, we count them 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. 16th notes, we count them 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and, right? There's 2 eighth notes for every 1 quarter note, right? We see that, 1 and then we go 2 and. There's 4 16th notes for every 1 quarter note, right? We have 1 E and 2 E and right? And this is important, and we'll get into that basic in just 1 second, okay? And then there's 2 16th notes for every 1 eighth note. All right, so see, 1 quarter note equals 2 eighth notes, which equals 4 16th notes, which is what I was saying. So now we're gonna get into this thing called time signatures. So if you see these numbers down here, it says 4 4, right? You might see things called 6 8. You might see 7 8. Different things like that, 5 4. What this means is it's 2 numbers, right? The bottom number is what note gets the beat. It's basically what note are we counting. So if it's a 4, we're going to be counting quarter notes. If it's an 8 at the bottom, we're going to be counting eighth notes. If it's a 16, we're going to be counting 16th notes. You'll never see 7, you'll never see 9 at the bottom because that's not a note that we have to count with, okay? So once again, if you see 4 at the bottom, we're counting quarters. If we see an 8 at the bottom, we're counting eighth notes. If you see a 16 at the bottom, we're going to be counting 16ths, okay? And this top number is how many of those notes are we counting? So 4 4 means we're counting 4 quarter notes, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and that's what makes up a measure. And a measure is a group of notes that are played before we repeat. All right, so within our time signature, right? So 4 4 means that we play 4 quarter notes and then we start counting again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, right? Okay, really boring if all of our music was literally just quarter notes though, right? These quarter notes can be other things, right? 1 quarter note equals 2 eighth notes, right? So we could go in 4 4, or we could go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? Because there is 8 eighth notes, right, for 4 quarter notes. Do you see that, right? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. How many eighth notes are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 eighth notes in a measure of 4 4. It's the same thing. It just has to equal 4 quarter notes. 16 16th notes, right, where there's 4 16th notes for every one quarter note, is the same as 4 4, right? Because, right, so here's 1 ienda equals 1 quarter note. 2 ienda equals another quarter note, right? And so basically when we say how many we're counting 4 quarter notes, that could be, we don't have to just play quarter notes, but that's kind of our pulse, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're gonna add 8th notes, but we're gonna keep that pulse, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. Now we're gonna do 16th notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. See, we're counting those quarters. We're able to play 8th notes and 16th notes, so it's not just getting boring, right? But we're playing it and keeping it in time with that time signature, okay? And lastly, I think you can see down here, I want to write out kind of rhythmically how it looks when you play a beat. All right, so when we play our standard beat where we go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and, right? And we're gonna break it up into different lines, right? Where we have our 8th notes up here, right? Where they're going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. We're doing that on the hi-hat, right? And then this bottom level is gonna be our bass drum. Our bass drum's on the 1 and the 3, and then our snare is gonna be on the 2 and the 4. So you see how all of these notes go together, right? Our 8th notes and our quarter notes, right? And then we all together you have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, right? So we're going to be using rhythmic notation, right? We're going to be writing out how to play these notes at different times in lessons and stuff, and I want you to be able to kind of see it and understand like what's going on there. All right, so that is a recap of time signatures. Oh, and one last thing I want to bring this up. So we just counted 4/4, right? You could also see 6/8. That would be counting what? If there's an 8th notes, we'd be counting 6 8th notes. If you saw 5/4, we'd be counting 5 quarter notes, right? That's basically what we're seeing, is how these time signatures can be different, and what does that mean? 7/8 means we're counting 7 8th notes, right? 9/8, 9 8th notes, right? 3/4, we're only counting 3 quarter notes now. And we'll be getting into all these different time signatures more specifically at different times. All right, thanks everybody. Great job this week. Talk to you all later. Bye.